All right, Sunday. All right, Sunday. All right, family. Good morning. Happy Sunday. Everybody, thank y'all for hanging out with us today. Do me a favor as you are coming in, hit those hearts, hit those likes, hit those share buttons. Coffee and Conversation is live, and wherever you may be joining us from, whether in your car, some folks may be working on Sunday morning, you may be laying in the bed, which I wish I was doing right now, still sleeping. But from wherever you are, thank y'all for hanging out with us today. Of course, I've got my world famous co-host, Miss Alicia Abraham, hanging out with us today.
Good morning. Good morning.
And we got our sister, our Lincoln sister,
Yes.
Venice Garner-Moore, hanging out with us, y'all.
Hey, good morning. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Venice has been with us before. We hung out a little bit last year. We are all 06, 04, 03 LU is strong in the house today.
Yeah.
Y'all know we always bring the Lincoln family. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we are bringing in all the professionals we know that are in our network so that we can continue to talk about all that is going on. And I love my sister's quote, and I'm stealing it for myself. Mental health care is not taboo. It is absolutely essential that we keep our mental health in check. Alicia and I were talking before we got on Venice. I had a little mental health conniption yesterday when I was watching the Brooklyn Nets play last night. And the doggone stadium was packed to the brim. And that's but we still ain't got no space. Folks ain't got no mask on. I was like,
that's the anxiety provoking right there.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
I mean, I know measures are relaxed. I know things have, we're starting to open back up. But Alicia said it earlier. I think like only 30% of the population is
completely vaccinated. Yeah. And I think it's like something like 45% are partially vaccinated. And so they're only talking about adults, obviously, because kids are still, but yeah, only 30% are fully vaccinated.
Okay. I mean, I'm cool and all, but people dirty. I'm going to say it. Some folks still dirty. They don't wash their hands.
It's a bit much. It has been a bit much.
Are you, Venice, are you in New York or are you in Connecticut?
I live in Connecticut. I'm from New York.
New York. Have they relaxed restrictions up there a bit yet?
May 19th, they announced that they were relaxing it, but everywhere that I have gone so far has said that they're still adhering to everything, which I absolutely respect. And I'm doing the same thing in my office as well. I'm still acting like it's the same thing, pretty much.
Are you inviting clients into your office, or are you still doing the telehealth?
Both.
Both.
So for me, I've been very, very slow pace with allowing people to come into my office. I have a few other therapists in my practice who do see clients with the combination too.
Okay.
So majority of my clients are still via Zoom until June 1st.
Nice.
And then I still do a combination, of course. So yeah.
I know you're not seeing nobody face to face for a little while.
No, fully telehealth I'm gonna ride this out until I can't ride it no more.
Seriously.
I actually did meet a couple the other day. We met outside in the park. It was pretty cool. Kind of like meeting them face to face. It was kind of our first intro. So we met face to face outside in the park and it was cool. The weather was nice. Maybe during the summertime, I might do some park meetings. The telehealth stuff, I'll be honest with you, it's still a bit impersonal for me. I'm trying. I really am sticking it out, but I still need that face-to-face interaction, man. I really
is. And you know what? And it has definitely been an adjustment. You definitely need the energy in the room to, for the one-on-one, right? It really does make a difference in the therapeutic approach. But we adjusting the telehealth. we making it work.
Yeah. And I feel like when it comes to energy, I've seen in my sessions, like even though they are, I would say, all right now, still telehealth, the energy is still there. It's all about the energy that you bring. And for me as a therapist, like and like the spiritual aspect of the life coaching, like I just have a whole ritual with it. And sometimes we forget that we are telehealth. So I've seen the growth, I've seen the transformation, especially with this year. So yeah, it really depends on whatever floats your boat. But they ready to come back in the office. They're like, when we coming back in? I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this. So yeah. And then some are like, I don't need to come in. Some are like, I don't even want to take the ride. Like, I'm good this way. So I'm like, okay, yeah.
I told my therapist, I said, I'm avoiding you until you open back up. Okay, I really need to see you basically. I'm avoiding you. I really need you to open back.
Come on in, right? Oh,
well, folks, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. Venice's specialty is personal healing. And of course she works with couples. And she, I want to personally say how much I appreciate your self-love help workbook. I went through the self-love workbook as I have been doing my own journey of personal healing. And that workbook allowed me to do a lot of journaling. It allowed me to do a lot of reflecting. So I am putting the plug in, y'all. I'm gonna pop the website in the chat, but I want you all to get the self-love workbook by Venice Moore. She is brilliant at what she does. And sis, you have helped me tremendously. I want to shout you out right now. All right,
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So as we're shouting this out, let's talk about this. Let's flesh this out a little bit, right? Yeah. We're gonna get into it. So love the plug. And so let's talk about how do we define self-love first? So let's be very basic. How do we define self-love?
Yeah, self-love to me is putting in the work for yourself, not even thinking about, the external. Self-love is all about the internal aspect of your healing. Yeah. A lot of people, especially lately, they'll say, oh, self-love, let me go get my nails done. Let me go, take this vacay, which I think a vacation is definitely a part of self-love. Absolutely.
Yes, Lord.
But, it's really about the internal aspect of your healing and spending that time with yourself and really digging in, going to places that may be a little scary, but at the end, like the growth and transformation is just priceless.
You said something that was so key. You were talking about it being digging in and being scary. So there's that vulnerability part of the self-love and also the self-healing. Because when we think about healing, a lot of the times I think we think about it from a positive perspective. And not to say that it's negative, but we think about like, rainbows and Skittles and healing is going to be great, right?
It can get pretty ugly. It can get pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Right. And the healing part, if you think about any time, like even like in the medical sense, if you've broken a bone or if you're sick, right, that journey to healing can be really tough sometimes. I know Pastor Grice can relate.
Jeez Louise. Yeah.
I just did some surgery, Venice, and but at the day after the surgery, I'm like, this supposed to be helping me get better? I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
It got progressively more. The pain got progressively worse. And it wasn't until the very end that I actually started to feel some relief, but the pain was actually healing. Right?
Yep. Yeah, it's so true. And that's a perfect example. It truly, truly is. Like you hear the statement, you got to go through it to get through it. Like that going through it part. Sometimes, and I offer breath work. Sometimes you got to breathe because that pain is there, and then at the end, you're like, oh, this is why I went through all of this. But you truly have to go through it to get through it when you're digging in. Seriously.
I think sometimes that's the biggest challenge. I'm sorry, Alice. I didn't mean to cut you off, sis.
No. You're fine. Go for it.
I think that's the biggest challenge or avoidance that I find people having when it comes to dealing with personal healing and going on that journey. It really is hard to confront those areas that we've neglected. I mean, and it's not till you confront it that you realize, how much digging I really have to do.
Yeah.
I swear that's the avoidance that really.
Mm-hmm. Right. You definitely mentioned some keywords: avoidance, neglecting, confronting. That's really what it takes when you're digging in. You got to really put that avoidance into the back and really like make a conscious choice as to if you're going to go there, because you really have no idea what going there is going to feel like, what it's going to look like, and who's going to be there when you get through it at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's when it's really truly just you and God, just you going through that process, and your therapist, of course, if you chose to go into, that aspect and that journey.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what is the goal of self-love and self-healing? What's the goal of this all? What's the benefit? What does our audience get out of this? Because how we're presenting it, we're like, it's tough and you got to have the self-awareness and you can't avoid and you got to be ready for change and we're talking about all these things.
Right.
So what's at the end of this journey?
Right. It's truly, like we said, it's truly the unknown. However, the end result is freedom.
Yes.
It's freedom and it's peace and it's acceptance of yourself and others, like unapologetically free. And it's love, like we say self-love, but it's love, and it's absolutely loving yourself. But when you go to that acceptance aspect, you're really truly loving yourself so that you can love others, because that's truly the highest vibration. The highest vibration is love, But in the middle of it is really like peeling at those layers, going to those places you never really even thought of. And then in that process, you get different awarenesses as well as you're going through the process. So, I talk about like generational patterns and really digging into like having those uncomfortable conversations with those family members that you really wanted to avoid, just to learn more about yourself, who you are, what those patterns can be, how they could be connected to you. Especially when it comes to like parents and grandparents and generational stuff, that, talking about it, like you mentioned at the beginning, my motto is it's not taboo, it's essential. But, we've been taught that it's been taboo. We've been taught not to go there. And the question is why? Because at the end of all of that, if you do the work, if you truly do the work, then there is freedom there. There is acceptance there, and there's a different way of being that you can actually, really accept yourself and living your vision. And then, we in my sessions, I'm totally about vision as we're doing the work. Like, what is your end result? What do you desire for your end result to be, so we can work through all of that? And then, as we're going through the process, I ask, like, so has your intention been met? Are you closer to your vision? Because at the end of the day, all of us as human beings, but truly spiritual beings, if we connect our intention to our behavior, and if it becomes aligned, if our intentions become aligned,
I like that.
Everybody would be good. Because at the end of the day, we're really not out to get each other. We're really here to heal and to love at the end of the day.
I love that. This quote I found that was really great. It was, finding our authentic selves gives us the peace of congruence. And I thought that was so powerful. And you talked about this idea of having peace within yourself, but peace within, and when you get that inner peace, don't you think that manifests into external things, like being congruent with the things that you want in life, or love or success or whatever those things are? Talk a little bit about finding that inner peace and how that manifests in very concrete ways for our audience.
Yeah, it's truly all about connectedness. Like, once you do get to that peaceful place, then everything will fall into place. That abundance truly will come. All of, like you said, all of the external aspects that you're looking for, when you're not focused on it and you're focused on the internal. Trust. That's trusting yourself. That's forgiving yourself. That's allowing the pieces to fall as they should or may. And then all of the external pieces are going to come, into fruition, into manifestation. The abundance is going to come. And that's because you've let go. And that's because the attachment is no longer based upon the external. It's really all about the internal piece. So
it's so hard though. I mean, culture, right? Culture teaches us that, our peace is going to come from, when we own our homes, when we have the kind of car we want, when we have the money that we want. Those are the norms that are pushed on us from the very beginning. I mean, there was, even as a believer, there was no talk about personal healing, right? Healing was something that came from the outside, something that God gave us, not something that we found on the inside from being authentically ourselves. So it is hard. Even for me, I still have to intentionally let go of my external expectations so that I can remain focused on my healing, because it seems like, for me, and I know folks are listening, folks have thought this, if I keep focusing on what's going on the inside, I'm missing out on what I need to be accomplishing on the outside, right? I feel like I'm neglecting what's going on the outside, and really, I'm thinking what's outside is what needs to be worked on. When really, it really is me. It really is me.
I'm glad that you said that, because at the end of the day, we still have bills to pay. We still have families. We still got to get up and do what we have to do. So we can't become monks and sit like, I'm like, okay, let me do this healing work, and then everything outside is just going on, So I get what you're saying. Absolutely. I think balance is important. That's a big piece, especially when you live busy lives. Like, we live in a chaotic world, so it's easy to truly get distracted. It's easy to adhere to, okay, everything external, because life gets busy, I think one of the pieces with balance, if you're doing the healing work, then it allows you to be clear. It allows you to have the clarity that you need to continue to focus, so that you can. That's why I said at the end of all of that, you'll see it all fall into place, because you're more clear. You're in a place of clarity. You are grounded, and then before you know it, you really rocking it, because you're focusing. You have a vision. You know that you either want to go back to school, or you want to open another business, or you want to, start this new venture, or do a girls trip or a guys trip. Like, you're confident in what you want, and confident in what you don't want, actually, as well. So that's where all of the external pieces will fall into place even more than they did before, because before there was some blockages there.
Yeah.
When you haven't done the work, and when you're not clear, and when you don't know yourself, it's easy to be more distracted.
We're talking about some, I like to give very concrete things to our audience. So we're talking about identity development. We're talking about self-esteem. We're talking about self-worth, self-love. All of these components are kind of in this whole umbrella of self-love and self-healing. What are some concrete things that people can do to begin this journey of self-healing? Like, what are some very basic things that they can start to do to get on this road?
Absolutely. The first part of whatever you do, it will take discipline, and it will take commitment to self. Point blank, right? And then with that, then there's plenty of things you can do. You can absolutely go see a therapist. I'm biased, but you can go to see a therapist.
We all biased.
You're preaching to the choir.
Even us, So, and that is time for yourself to unpack, so that you can really see, and what is going on with me. What do I need to do? On top of that, write out your goals. Read a book, like even the self-love healing book, like that is a concrete book where you got to sit down and you really are asking yourself some questions that you probably hadn't asked before. So it can look like that. It can look like taking a vacation, if finances and family allows, to really sit with yourself as you're doing that work. It's a combination. I say if you can do all of that together, like during the year, and map out time, it's all about time with yourself. And really mapping out what you desire, even on the healing round. Like, what does this look like for me? Because some things may work for you that may not work for your friend Sally. So it really truly, and everybody's situation is different too. So I say going to see a therapist or someone that you trust within like either a pastor, a therapist, or even going to groups, finding like self-help groups, depending on the particulars of what you're going through. You know, in addition to my couples and marriage work and in individuals, I work with people who are grieving too. I lost my mom after I wrote the Self-Love and Healing book.
Wow.
And I had a whole grief chapter in the book. So there's layers to that because I've gone through grief before, but there's also different levels of grieving. So you could lose a family member, but then, you know, losing a parent is different, and then losing a mother is entirely different. I had to go in a different way, but I'm grateful for the tools because I've been able to do the work.
You know, sometimes I think people excuse themselves from even recognizing, hey, you know, everybody else got mental problems, but I don't. Here's the truth, people. Every one of us have some mental health challenges at one point in our lives. And you cannot do this journey alone. If you got kids, if you married, you got some mental health issues, okay? You're going to have the mental health challenges.
Things come up.
It's going to come up. And so being aware of the fact that I'm affected, my mind is affected, my heart is affected, that I may be responding differently. I'm not really managing my emotions. I'm feeling shut down, and especially the grief. All of us over this last year and a half have experienced some grief, whether it's loss of family, loss of jobs, even not being able to go out. We're grieving that. We are really still grieving that. And so we want to emphasize in this conversation today that every one of us have to be aware that we all need some help. Stop lying to yourself and trying to manage it on your own. You have to lean into the community that's around you. Again, as Venice said, whether it be your pastor, whether it be a therapist, whether it be group, we all got to lean in somewhere at some point to get some help. I just needed to say that because sometimes we excuse ourselves. We allow the money that we have to excuse ourselves, the resource that we have, we excuse ourselves, and we don't feel like we've got to confront things in our life. But the reality is, all of us got a crazy side. Let's just tell the truth. Every one of us.
And it's all a part of the lesson. Like even the people in your household, your spouse and your children have been brought into the world. Like you've been connected on a whole different level with your spouse and children because they've been placed in your life and you've been placed in their life for those lessons to come up.
Yeah.
For those generational lessons to come up. You know, you marry your lesson, you marry what you need to learn about yourself so that it can come up for healing. And you're like, oh, really? Like it all comes up. And it's so imperative to do that work. Unless you want to live a life where you're continuously making excuses or when you don't understand why you keep, continuing with this pattern or sitting in a rut. It's really about choice here. Like, what type of life do you desire? Do you desire to stay here in what some people may call a rut, or do you desire to have that peace where you could breathe better, live better, and then have all of the external things that you desire after you do the work?
Yeah. Alice, were you going to say something? Because I was about to leave.
Yeah, she said so much in that, and so it's hard to pick which route I want to go down. But one of the things that you were talking about was like family and family of origin and kind of all of that stuff, right? And so I wonder, we're talking about self-love and authenticity. How do you do that, or how do you balance that when maybe your family of origin has put you in a specific role, or society has put you in a specific role, or you feel like you have to reside in this role, whether it's, maybe you're a high achiever, or maybe you're the dependable one, or maybe you're a parentified child, right? Who's now adult, right? Yeah. Like, how do you get to that place of acceptance and of authenticity when these roles have been placed on you?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I feel like I've been placed in all of those roles that you just mentioned. And it's really, truly a role that you've been called to do. And when you do the work, you figure out your why in all of those aspects. When it comes to, like, for example, I am one of my dad has 7 children.
Wow.
And then with my mom, I'm her only girl. And I'm in the middle. But they call me the big sister. I'm just in the middle. Like sometimes I want to have, feel like I got big brothers, but I had to go to a place of acceptance that this is a part of my role. And I did not really accept it until I did some inner work on my soul, like really figuring out the family dynamics and the aspect of realizing how and why I'm so different. I called my company Embracing Your Difference for a reason. And I started realizing that why even more as the years went on. Like sometimes when you've been placed in those positions, it's a part of your purpose, truly.
Yeah.
However, with that though, it comes to a place where when you do the work, you become more confident in yourself enough to make choices and create boundaries if you feel like those positions are burning you out. So when you start to choose yourself in different ways, then it allows other people in your life to level up too. And either they are or they're not, because as we know, the people in our households are our immediate family. And even for them, we have to know to keep boundaries and really take the breaks that we need for ourselves.
You got me thinking about as we become more authentic, right? Because that's what we're kind of pushing. We're talking about our own authenticity, being comfortable in our own skin, confident in our own skin, focus on our own purpose. It will cause you to lose some people who you had in your inner circle, right? It will cause you to lose some people that you thought you had some authentic friends with. That can be grieving. That could cause a lot of grief as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we grieve, and we could grieve so many things in our lifetime. And until you become aware of what grieving truly is and put in a name to what you're feeling, then you actually realize, wow, I've grieved a few things, even before losing a loved one. Sometimes you could grieve where you used to live. When we move from place to place, sometimes people could grieve a career when they change careers or if they start to embark on a new journey, and then grieving relationships, grieving friendships like your day ones or people who you've been around and played in the sandbox with, realizing that as you grow, sometimes you grow apart. It's no love loss, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to feel that, because there was a connection there. And then of course, when you have an intimate relationship and that is no longer in effect, or even when you find out more about the person in your relationship as you're working through healing, in a marriage, that's still grieving too. When you go through some things in a marriage and you sometimes realize things were not the way you thought, you're grieving what was as you grow into what is becoming.
Let me ask you, and I'll ask both of you all this question. So say I'm on a journey of personal healing, right? And it is really treacherous work, right? How does a spouse support somebody who is going through a personal journey of healing? How do I stand by and support them as they're going through? What are some recommendations for that?
Alicia, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in on that one. I think going into marriage, we've got to be flexible, right? And so flexibility is going to be the key, meaning that when we marry somebody, we come in with some expectations, right? And so I think we believe that our partner isn't dynamic, meaning that they're not going to change, they're not going to evolve, they're not going to develop, they're not going to grow. And a part of their self-healing, they're a part of their self-love, a part of doing this work is growth. And so I think the partner who is supporting their partner going through this growth and this healing needs to be so flexible with their spouse and trust that the bond, the love, the thing that grounded and rooted them into this marriage, into this relationship, that's going to be sustained even as this person is developing and growing into their authentic self. So it's trust, it's flexibility, and it's also your own, it's also, facing your own inadequacies and what things are coming up with your own spouse that's kind of poking at you. So those are definitely those things that I would definitely encourage. Just again, a supportive flexibility and trusting the process and trusting what we're grounded and rooted in.
Yeah. I was absolutely going to say trust in the process. And before trusting the process, is so important to just, like we talk about authenticity, to be authentic and transparent with your spouse. Because a lot of times people guess and they make assumptions like, they don't understand what I'm going through and I'm trying and I'm healing. And you have to really have those authentic, transparent conversations so that your spouse could understand. They may not know everything that you're talking about in the therapy session, and they may not be able to grasp the level of healing, but just to be transparent so that, hopefully that could allow even more of a deeper connection to happen and occur with, like you said, the trust and the flexibility of that. And, once you communicate about that, then whatever is needed, as this union, the two of you hopefully will be able to be flexible, talk about it, and give each other what you need.
I was thinking about early in the pandemic, how many divorces were filed when this pandemic first started. The amount of people, I think it jumped up like 60-70% pandemic first started. Have you all heard any of the trends as of late? Are those divorces still been filed? I'm sure your all's caseload is full of like mine.
Yeah, absolutely is. And then think about the amount of marriages that have been saved too.
Yeah.
Because you had to sit with your stuff and sit with your spouse, especially early on in the pandemic. It was just like, woo, you had to learn a lot about yourself and your spouse, and knowing that before everybody was just going, like we talked about earlier, living a chaotic world, everybody doing what they got to do, but then you got to sit with the person that you vowed to sit with, and you learn more.
You got to work it out. It is. And what I liked about the pandemic was that, you really got to develop those things in the relationship that had been a challenge. And so that's what I'm seeing in a lot of my couples work. This had been going on for years, but now we have the time, we have the ability to really work it out and to really come. And we're forced, right? We're forced. We got to live with each other. So we're really in this position where we have to be empathetic and flexible and go through this process of healing our marriage. So that's what, maybe that's a very optimistic view of what happens in the pandemic in terms of couples work, but that's what I've been seeing. And it's been extraordinary to see these couples reunite and really come back to some essentials that maybe they lost,
I agree. Absolutely.
Because of the chaos of life, right? If you think about it, you get so entrenched in the business of marriage and of family, right? And you neglect the thing that really brought us together, right? You neglect the marriage, you neglect the work that marriage requires. And so what I loved about this space is that you had to slow down. You had to go back to basics. You had to go and communicate. You had to build that trust again, right? You had to do all of those things again and go back to basics. So that's what I really loved about this space.
Yeah. And I think checking in has become different. Marriage. Prior to the pandemic, checking in was like, I called to, let them know I was good, or I got here, or I text. Checking in is different when you are, like we talked about a moment ago, forced. This is forced isolation. So you're checking in with each other on a different level now. Like, I'm checking in with you. Really, what's going on? What's this about? Yeah. And you can't go anywhere. So you have nothing but time to really see what that is.
Yeah.
That checking in is you're right. It is so much more authentic. It has so much more depth now, and it's because I'm more aware of who you are. I'm more aware of what's affecting you. I'm more aware of how I have impacted you. I think the other day I said something to my wife, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I said it. I went on, and a few minutes later, I was like, oh my God, I forgot how when I say it like that, that's what's going to affect her. That's triggering. I'm sitting here doing work my own. That was a trigger. I need to fix myself. Baby, I'm so sorry I said that. But I found myself checking in not just that day. I checked in the next day. I checked in the day after that, because I realized how much that one thing I said could hit something deep in her heart, and I want to make sure you still feel safe. I want to make sure I didn't bring up any old pain, any old wounds. That checking in becomes it's so much more impactful. It has so much more depth, but it's because we're just so much more aware of each other. I don't know about other people, and you kind of said it, Alicia. The healing has been great during this pandemic. The time I've had with my family, some of the jobs I quit over this pandemic.
Yes.
because at the end of the day, that's what's valuable at this point, right? My time with my family.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that are important. I mean, I know Venice and I, we both in hotel rooms right now because we're doing stuff with our families.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I have certainly learned to put stuff to the side. Put the money to the side and all the opportunities I was chasing to the side, put that stuff to the side and get back to what is valuable. And I think that getting back to the things that are valuable has helped my mental equilibrium all the way around, right? If this pandemic has not taught us anything else, it has taught us what we can live with and what we truly can live without. And having that balance, having that clarity, goes a long way while we're on this journey. It goes a long way while we're on this journey. Alice, you gonna say something? I see it in your face.
Yeah, I was. We were talking about earlier before we got on. We were talking about transitioning outside. Transitioning out of this pandemic, and I'm going to use that in quotation marks, right? So, we talked about the richness and the depth and the connection and the authenticity that people, and especially couples and families, have been able to build. How do they sustain this as they go back into life? And so we know what's going to happen, right? We know that, life is going to get back to the hustle and the bustle. How do you sustain this? What are things that you have to do in order to sustain this richness and connection that we're talking about?
Exactly. I was literally just thinking this like 2 days ago. I was like, it's really time to talk about, slowing the pace, keeping the pace, as much as you possibly can, keeping that pace as slow as you possibly can, allow it to be. Not to say that you can't go live, but with the tools that you've been taught over this year and a half, now it's time to put it in real practice.
Yeah.
Because it was easy to do that work because we were forced to just be still. However, now it's like, okay, now you can get out, but that's where the discipline comes. The real discipline comes, where you, hopefully waking up 30 minutes earlier or taking that time out to say, hey, maybe we could plan a date night, like doing the balance of both, just continuing to do the work for yourself, whether that's like morning, evening, workout, whatever it is, and then still taking the time out if you have a wife and husband or spouse or family to take that time out for them too. So just planning ahead and being present is a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, give more on being present. And so that kind of goes into that whole mindfulness piece and just really sitting into that space. Give a little bit more meat to being present.
Yeah, being present in the now and not allowing your mind to race to later or even traumatic things like before, as you have done the work, allowing yourself to remember, like, Pastor Grice said, what matters most in the now, as you created a vision and tried to move forward. So, yeah.
It is true. I don't know what quote I was reading, but somebody was like, the devil lives in your past and he lives in your future. God is the one who exists in your present. And if you spend too much time in either one of those dynamics, you'll miss where God is now, right? Even the scripture says faith is now. It's not in the future. We got to leave the future to God. We can't do anything about the past. You got to leave it back there. All we really have is the moments that we exist in right now. This where God is right here present with us. We've talked about it, I think, the last 2 weeks, but practicing mindfulness has saved my life. I am because I have a perfectionist mindset, right? I've always got to be cross every T, dot every I. Practicing my mindfulness forces me to stay in the now, so that I don't drift off in either place, and really, accept that, it ain't gonna be perfect, right? It ain't gonna always work out according to plan, but we continue to push this mindfulness. I know anybody who's been paying attention to Coffee and Convo, we've been talking about mindfulness every other week. We talk about it, but it's true. We do talk about it a lot, don't we, Alex?
But it's needed.
It's essential. Yeah,
it is.
Our culture pushes us thinking about the future so doggone much. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? I was listening to a freaking podcast the other day. They were like, the Chinese plan for 100 years in advance. I was like, who's got time for that? Okay, who can think about that far ahead? But if you're not careful, you will let culture make you miss today. And if you've got children, all you have is these moments right now. That's all you have.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think we also get stuck in this like production mindset, right? I need to be producing all the time. I need to be manifesting. I need to get to this goal. And I think we believe that that's going to derive some happiness, some joy, some peace. But what we're finding is that once you get to that external place, going back to what Venice is talking about, when you're not doing that internal work, it feels empty, right? And so, again, really aligning that inner work and all the external stuff will follow. And so really talking about, going back to a lot of what Venice has talked about is that external, that production, that perfection, that anxiety about the future. It's again, that anxiety. We're trying to control something that's really kind of uncontrollable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So,
Venice, talk a little bit about the acceptance. You talked about acceptance for a bit, and I want you to flesh that out a bit. So even as we're talking about it in this paradigm, like acceptance of like, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen,
Right. Absolutely.
And getting to a peace in that. How does that manifest? What's that journey look like?
For me, I think with the acceptance comes with the, obviously letting go, but as you're doing the work and taking that time out for yourself, it really is about trusting yourself. Trusting yourself is essentially trusting God with today.
Yeah.
And removing the attachment to whatever it is that is causing that anxiety. After, of course, you got to explore and figure out what that's about. But sometimes we've been taught to be attached to so much that really we can't take with us.
Yeah. Talk about those attachments a little bit, because when you say attachments, I think about attachments that don't really serve us, that aren't congruent with the vision we have for our life, or even that are maybe really toxic. And I know we use that word a lot, especially in today's society. Yeah. But give some words to that a little bit about these attachments that.
One of my favorite quotes is by Dr. Seuss: "Be who you are, say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind."
I love it.
I love Dr. Seuss.
Me too. It was a good one. I love this quote for years. So really, as you do the mindfulness work and you are present, then you realize that even the things like, you know, when we talk about perfectionism, when you're trying to make sure you cross the T's, dot the I's, get this done, like in the moment when you are present, even the things that may seem chaotic really isn't, because where you are in this very moment is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's trust. And that's removing the attachment. It's removing everything that doesn't serve you. Because if you truly think about it, you know, even those feelings that make us feel uncomfortable is brought up for healing. But as it continues, if you continue to perseverate on it, God doesn't want you to feel those feelings. And that's where the trust comes from. When you try to remove the attachment, it becomes a trust thing and release thing and removing, you know, what no longer serves you.
Girl, you're gonna have me in here crying. I'm just thinking about my own journey over these last few years, and you know, I'm probably disclosing too much, but oh well, we on here. What it is, what it is. You know, I'm thinking about my own journey and the work that I've remained committed to in therapy, committed to my groups, and now I am finally not so attached to my dreams that it's not causing me depression anymore. I'm not falling into these deep, dark pits out of my own comparisons with other people, right? I'm finally, because I've been able to do the work, I'm finally able to embrace and really think, as you said, with clarity and with authenticity, practical steps to get the work done that I really feel like I'm called to do. And for the first time, again, it's not consuming me to the point where I'm neglecting my kids and neglecting my marriage. You know, the chips are going to fall where they may. We know our success is inevitable if we put the right steps forward. And I'm just trying to remain present. I mean, I literally, when you said that, you know, finally we're not, you know, you exploring why you're so attached to that thing, man, I teared up over here. I had to put my head down because I'm just appreciating the journey that I've been pushing through. You know, and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna plug the book again, y'all. The Self-Love Healing book, I'm telling you, by Venice Moore. You have got to grab it. It really helps you do the work and put you on that journey. I just got to shout it out one more time. I really got to.
You brought up something that was so powerful, Corey. You brought up the vulnerability to be able to go through that process. And so I want Venice to really dig deep into the vulnerability piece. Because, right, you had to get to a place where not only did you accept that, hey, I'm not going to focus so much on the success or the manifestation of the success, but I'm really going to focus on the inner work. And that takes extreme vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
And that's risky if you think about it, right?
It is.
Get into that, Venice. Talk about that.
Yeah, and that's why it goes back to trust, because it's very, very, very uncomfortable. And sometimes when you're doing this work, I say it could be a moment by moment piece of like trying to remind yourself like you're good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm good. And that's when, you know, in this right now moment, I'm good. I'm safe. And removing, you know, that piece and becoming as vulnerable as you can, because you're peeling those layers. And that's where it goes to, you know, maybe a little while ago we were talking about how uncomfortable it is, but that's where the process is. And like you said, Alicia, trusting the process. When you feel so uncomfortable that you got to remind yourself to breathe, that's when you know you're doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we also have to posture that vulnerability isn't weakness, or it's not, we're not moving away from our goals or from our dreams. It's not that at all, but we're really just getting into a posture of, again, moving towards that authentic self of love and, you know, being present and mindful and all of these things that we're talking about. And so I do want to posture that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's actually the exact opposite. It's strength, right?
Yeah.
And I want to put out there, like, as you're doing this work, And as you go to those vulnerable places, in addition to your therapist and or pastor, be mindful of the people you have around you.
Yes.
So like, authentic friendships are essential.
Yes.
You gotta think about who you have around you and who you're trusting with those vulnerable places that you go. And that also goes back to knowing what serves you and what doesn't serve you, because this work is deep work that you may be called to do. And as you do it, the places may be dark where you can't even call your therapist at the time. And you need that person on the other line, or like, hey, what you doing? I'm having a moment. So think about that. I put that in the book too, like how authentic friendships are during the process of life. Truly.
I think you said something so key as we're doing this vulnerability work, this self-love work, making sure that we don't show our vulnerability to someone who's emotionally abusive, right?
Yeah.
That could be really harmful. So being very, I talk about in a lot of my sessions about building your community, like what's that inner circle, right? Can they cultivate and trust can they cultivate my emotions? Can they create that safe space for my emotions? I think is what I'm trying to say better. And making sure that you have that so that you're not positioning yourself to be in a place where your vulnerability is going to be used against you or in a toxic way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think and I said it earlier and I want to say it again, this journey is not meant to be alone. We are not meant to journey alone. You have to have an authentic community around you, friends and people that value you, that serve you, right? That give to you. I don't allow any more leeches in my space. If you can't, I do allow leeches. I just charge you for leeching, right? You can leech all you want. You just got to pay the bill when this leeching is done, okay? But you have to have people around you who give just as much as you give to the relationship, or there's going to create some imbalance. Somebody's going to be wanting, somebody's be lacking. And if you, and it's okay if you finding individuals in your life who can't, here it is the word I'm looking for, where there is no reciprocity, then I got to let it go. I got to let you go. If we are going to be friends, there has to be reciprocity in a relationship. If you're going to be in my inner circle, has to be reciprocity in the relationship. All right, y'all, I'm gonna stop us today because we a little bit over time, and y'all know we could talk all day.
Yes, we could.
Me and Venice were all here last time. I was like, oh my God, Venice, we've been over here too long. Yeah. Talk all day. But
good company.
I want to put these plugs in here. Venice is the author of 3 books, Because I Am Different, Embracing My Difference, and the Self-Love and Healing Workbook. You can get all of these resources on embraceyourdifference.com. It is up there on the screen, y'all. I want you to grab up as much as you can. If it's not for you, you know somebody in your family, somebody in your circle who needs these resources. And I'm going to plug it again, that Self-Love and Healing Workbook. I'm telling you, it will help you confront the things that you need to confront, have the conversations with yourself that you may not be having, and put you on this journey towards self-love. Can y'all help me celebrate and thank Venice for hanging out with us today? We so appreciate you, sis.
Thank you.
My
biggest pleasure. I appreciate you both. Great to see you, Alicia. Thank you for having me. And bro, I love you, bro. Thank you.
Love you, sis.
It's been real.
All right, y'all. Venice got to go. She got sports games to go to. I got some sports games to go to. The Abrahams always got something to do today. But listen, thank y'all for hanging out with us. I didn't do some preaching earlier, but I will be back you all tonight around 6 p.m. We'll share a word we've been teaching on. We're going to be teaching a series on a sound mind. As we embracing Mental Health Month, we're going to dig into some scripture tonight about maintaining a sound mind. I'll see y'all about 6 o'clock. I love you dearly. Get out and enjoy this weather. Get some vitamin D in your system. Don't be inside all day. It is shining bright. All right? Y'all be safe. Have a good day. We love you dearly. We'll see y'all soon.
Bye.